Morning all, Richard Vobes here on the 8th of July 2022 on a very sunny day here in Worthing. Welcome to the Vobes Show. As you know, I've been experimenting with all sorts of different bits and pieces and trying to work out what is the best way forward for not only this show but for the Bald Explorer, my sister show, and other bits and bobs that I've been doing. The Naked Englishman podcast, which I record each morning, which is a sort of behind the scenes of my life and as a YouTube creator. And it all started off really because I had a bit of a funk or a wobble, if you like, on Monday when I was out filming for something called the Sussex Border Walk, which is something the Bald Explorer was doing. And things, I don't know why, but things got confused in my head, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I had had 7 very nice programs on the Bald Explorer, 30-minute long format ones, and there was just something about what I was doing that I thought, this doesn't cut it. This does not cut the mustard. And I'd set myself a bar quite high, and I was working to that, and it just seemed to be falling flat. So I had this week put a video together. The members of the Bald Explorer channel over on the Bald Explorer have got the video today. They can have a look and see what we're thinking about and how we're going to go forward with the Bald Explorer. And also, while I was working on that, I was thinking about the Vobes Show, and then this week I was trying some stuff out. We had the very heated and difficult political situation that was going on, and I felt it was worth covering that, and I had nowhere really to do it other than in the Naked Englishman, which is, as I say, it's just an audio podcast really behind the scenes of what I'm up to rather than anything political. So I tried and experimented putting it on here as a bit of a talking point, and I'm not convinced, even though that people very kindly have made comments there. I'm not convinced it's the right place. I'm not even convinced that I'm the right person to do that sort of chatting about, because it's not really my remit. I have views, of course. I have opinions, and you're welcome to shout them down, as indeed people do, and we can all be friends. And then last night, really, I was out walking going, what am I going to do? I've got all these different platforms, and it's all getting a bit foggy, messed up. And what shall I do? And then I thought, I know what I should do. I should go back to basics. So the Vobes Show, many moons ago, started in 2005 as an audio podcast. Well, I'm not convinced that going back to a podcast is the way for me for the Vobes Show, but I've got the studio, I've got it all set up. The lovely Julia comes in and we'll do the live shows again. We did a live show halfway through the week, actually, and I know it may have trodden on a few people's toes because there was another live show that was supposedly looking after the audience that was here, but because Boris was about to disembark and we thought he would possibly have left, I felt it essential to mark that occasion, a historic moment, to talk about it and see what the audience reaction was. So I did do a live at about 20 minutes after 8 on Wednesday evening. But anyway, in doing that, I realised that in the studio there's now a little button, although not everybody has seen the results of pressing this button, which inserts a little advert into a live show, which means there's the possibility of earning some cash to pay for everything during a live show, which would be very nice. And it certainly gives me the incentive to bring back the live shows earlier than I thought about, which I was going to do during the winter. So I think we may well be bringing that back possibly once a week to start with. It depends, because there's going to be various things going on. However, here with this as a little 15-minute, 10, 15-minute or 5-minute, 10, whatever, yet to be organised, I thought as much as I can go back to basics and do a little daily chat so that you, the lovely audience, if you don't want to listen to too much politics, or and I can't say I'm not going to talk about politics, but I'm not a politician, and I'm not one of those junkies that follow every minutiae I mean, I mangle the language as it is, as you can hear, every nuance of politics. But when there's important things going on in the country, I think it is important to talk about it, because I imagine that people also are wondering, like the price of fuel. We can all get together and have a good moan at things, and if we find maybe we can help each other out, particularly if we're all in the same area. Or the same country, and we say, do you know that up in Milton Keynes, for example, the price of fuel is only £198. £198, £1.98 a litre. £198. Golly, if we get to that far, I think we'll all be bankrupt, don't you? So I thought maybe what I should be doing is a light-hearted chat show in the mornings when I can. So I can't promise to do this every day, but there may be bits and bobs in the news. There may be things that I'm doing. There may be things that you want to talk about that we can talk about. And I do a pre-recorded show, so you can watch this over breakfast or lunchtime or whenever it goes out. I can't promise anything at the moment. These are just sort of basic ideas that I'm throwing out to you. So I'm going to call this the Chinwag, in which I have a good old chinwag, bring you up to speed with the things I'm doing and things that are in my mind and all of that. So that's that. Now, Julia and I are going to have a chat today, actually, because I'm thinking of launching a consumer show in which Julia and I look at things, maybe some unboxings, maybe we try some food, maybe we try some drink, maybe we do all sorts of things, probably film down in the kitchen, and that will go up maybe once or twice a week, don't know. It's just, these are all plans coming on at the moment. For more content for you that we can do. See, the problem with lovely Julia at the moment, she's got a little boy. We are together, and we're very happily together, but she doesn't have a lot of time because she's committed, obviously, to look after her children, and I respect that greatly because I've had children. I know exactly what that's. I still have children, only my children are having their own children, and of course I want to see my grandchildren as well as supporting Julia, and we need to do as many different things that we can do to try and earn enough money to keep all of this going. So Julia only has about 2 hours a day freedom at the moment, whilst Joe is in nursery. So I thought, well, what can we do? We can't really get into the car and go belting up the road to do a bit of Bald Explorer filming and that sort of thing. Because by the time we get there, we've got to get back and then we'll be rushed, and that's no good to anybody. So I figured what we need to do is something that we can do based at home, very simply. And I suddenly thought, well, what's the one thing that both Julia and I, and particularly Julia, will be good at? And that is looking at consumer things. Julia loves sort of shiny things. She's a bit of a magpie, she's attracted to various things, which is fantastic. And I know that there'll be plenty of people out there, and I can bring a bit of humour, hopefully, but also a bit of cynicism about it. What's it made of? Where's it made? Maybe try and promote those things if we can find any things that are made in England or made in Britain or not made in China would be quite nice, and look at the merits of certain things. And maybe if we can build this up, companies can send us stuff to try out. We'll obviously put our hand up and say we're just trying that out, and have a go. Now I know there's a plethora of those sort of channels out there, but we'll do it in our own inimitable style, unless of course we come up with a different suggestion, which of course we'll tell you all about. But we'll probably set up a whole new YouTube channel for that, Richard and Julia's Consumer Nonsense or something. I don't know what it'll be called. I just pulled that out of the hat. So that's that. The Bald Explorer, of course, is going to carry on doing what the Bald Explorer does, and I still want to continue making these long format 30-minute quality products, because they speak to me. It gives me a chance to practice my craft, practice photography or filmmaking skills and all of that. But they may not be once a week. If it takes 2 weeks to make an episode, so be it. And so in between, I'm filling it in with this other stuff. So that's what's, I think, is on the cards. So there may be all sorts of things in this show that I can tell you about and get you interested in and you may not be interested in whatsoever. I mean, many people probably don't read many books, but I'm an avid reader. I love reading very much, and I love reading books about England and about old England in particular, because I'm looking in my quest for England on the Bald Explorer for exciting things that tell me about England that I want to keep in looking for a simple English life. It might be hard life, but more simple. I feel that the life has got a bit complicated with all this electronic stuff, although I, of course, am using it all and embracing it all. But at the same time, I do like that very simplistic way of doing things. Hence why I've got my Essie, in as much as I have to chop the wood and light the fire and cook my dinner and heat my water and warm the house by using primeval stuff. Now, I know there'll be some people going, well, that's not very green, is it? But as you know, I'm not a great proponent of the green situation. I think there's a lot of... it's not really a conspiracy theory, but I think there's a lot of alarmist going on about the fact that we're all going to die in a horrible burnt-up planet if we continue burning fossil fuels. I think we have reduced hugely, and I think we will continue to reduce hugely, and it's good from a pollution point of view, and I'm absolutely behind that. If, and I don't mind the fact that fossil fuels go, if whatever is there is cheap and abundant and isn't reliant on things like wind and sun on those days when wind and sun isn't here. And I don't want it thrust down my face. I want a very gentle transition. And I personally think we have time, but of course you may challenge that, and you're welcome to challenge that. And I'm interested if you can persuade me otherwise. And I'm not necessarily going to try and persuade everybody else to my way of thinking. I can just express my views, and that'll be that. So I'm an avid reader. I like reading, and I just thought I'd share. I've got into an author called George Ewart Evans. He wrote this book called The Horse in the Furrow. It's a fantastic book, actually. It's about farming in Suffolk. Now, I don't really know much about Suffolk, but I know a little bit about the traditions of farming, thanks to George Ewart Evans, who was a well-known writer in his time, I understand. But he talks about how the horses and the horsemen and the process of the ploughing, and there's so much more to it. The traditions that they adhered to, the proud nature of the farmers. The reason I'm interested in farming, let me just tell you this, for those that are unaware, is that farming is very much at the core of human nature. If you go back generation after generation for thousands of years, you'll know that man has had to understand and appreciate what farming meant, because without it, you were unable to grow food, and of course you'd starve to death. And in those days, starving to death was a very real prospect. At the moment, we have a lot of food that's being produced from all over the world, and it's coming in, and I have arguments about all of that. And not all of that food, because it's so mass-produced, has the same nutrients that perhaps it could have, and indeed should have, for a healthy nation. But I think that's for another conversation. So I'm fascinated on the old ways, the small mixed ways of farmings, and how the farmers of old appreciated and respected the land, something that I'm not convinced at the moment that farmers, the big farmers, big commercial farmers, have the same respect for the land, even though they rely on it to produce their stuff. And also, certainly governments and house builders, developers, have no respect for the land other than the fact that they can put their houses on it. And I've mentioned this many times before, but I believe that farmland, particularly now, more than any other time in the world, now should be ring-fenced, and it's not permissible to build on farmland, because we're only custodians, and I know I'm repeating myself a bit here. We are only custodians of the land. We don't know what people in the future, 100 years hence, will maybe need that farmland. It may be a bit redundant at the moment for many of us, because we may be getting a lot of our food from overseas, but that may not be the case always, and we may need the land to farm on. We have done for generation and generation, as I said before, and so what makes us think that we'll never need it again? And if that is the case, perhaps we shouldn't build houses on farmland. Maybe that, in my mind, ring fence that so that you're not allowed to do it. That would be the way I look at it. So Horse in a Furrow is a fascinating book. He wrote another series of books, the Ask the Fellows Who Cut the Hay. And mostly this is about him talking to the existing farmers, written around the 1960s, late 50s, 1960s. And he talks to the people who remember, people in their 70s and 80s who remember the old ways. The Farm and the Village is another book which I've recently bought, and I'm looking forward to reading that. And then an autobiography of George Ewart Evans, The Strength of the Hills. I'm fascinated. So this will tell us about why and how he got to the point where he started to write these very important books. And I think books on farming and the old ways will teach us something today. History is like that. And I always say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, that in the past there was something there, nuggets that I think often we've forgotten, and we look back and go, do you know what? Not everything in the past was bad, but not everything was good. But there are some very good things and ways of doing things and understandings that we could actually, and we do need to encompass today, like respect for our police, for example, but then they've got to earn the respect. Respect for grown-ups, for teachers, and people like that. But again, they've got to earn that respect, and teach proper things. But all of this for discussions for another day. Anyway, there we are. That's the thought. The chinwag. That's the idea. Tomorrow might be a completely different idea. I'm still in that process of can I pin down something that is going to work going forward? Keep people entertained if they so wish, to tune in on a daily basis as much as I can do it, and have a bit of fun in the process. That's really the nature of the beast. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. Take care. I'll talk to you hopefully with something else tomorrow.